She's also, she served with Frank O'Bannon, so I'm going to let her talk and then open it up. We're going to try to get her out the door by 5:30 because she has to make her way back to Indianapolis. So without further ado, I give you Christina Hale.
Democrat in Terre, Haute, Holy Toledo. Thank you. That was amazing. It was my honor to serve briefly with Bianca. Bianca, I hope we serve together again, actually. And one of my heroes is here today, Representative Percy. Where are you? Yay! So much for the state of Indiana, for Hoosiers, for children, and for women. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's my honor to have you serve as mentor and leader in our caucus, and I know that feeling is shared by all of us in the House Democrat caucus. And the very special thing about Representative Kersey, too, is how well respected he is by our Republican colleagues. When he gets up to speak, everybody listens, and everybody knows what a good heart that he has, as well as a sharp mind. And that's unusual in these days. And I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'd like to give you a campaign update. And I'd also, just because we're a gathering of mostly women, I'd like to address issues of women in our state house too. So I'm really nobody very special. I was a single mom at a young age, so my path to politics is a little bit different. So I was raising my young son, working a lot of jobs and putting myself through Purdue University, and I worked very hard and was very motivated by becoming a young mother, not only to, well, Owen became my heart, but he also became the reason why I pursued the career choices that I have so far. And I have been so fortunate, and I've been on the receiving end of so much support from people that I decided I needed to dedicate my life to doing good things for other people as well. So we moved abroad for a time. I was a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar, and Owen and I moved back, and I went to work at the State Department of Commerce, and then the Indiana Professional Standards Board, which was at that time the agency responsible for teacher quality and teacher licensing. I'm not sure what it says about me because the two state agencies I worked at no longer exist. But it has given me keen insight into some of our focus areas on this campaign: the economy, economic development, infrastructure, and also education. That I went on to work on Governor Frank O'Bannon's staff. I was his special assistant for boards and commissions. So everything from the Indiana Egg Board to the IU Board of Trustees. Learned a lot about how government and the government of the people and citizens' participation on boards and commissions can work well and sometimes not so well. But for most of my career, I've been at Kiwanis International. Are there any Kiwanians here today, by any chance? Or Key Clubbers, maybe? But Kiwanis is a service organization of business people that do good things in their community, and then they sometimes gather to do good things across the world. So my role there, I was responsible for their operations in Europe and Asia Pacific, and then I became their chief communications officer. And I think you're all pretty familiar with John Gregg's background, and I feel like we complement each other very well. He's an accomplished attorney, an accomplished business person, a university president. He's been the Speaker of our House. He's done so much. And I have to tell you, too, he is not auditioning for any other job. Our first opponent seemingly never really was interested in the job that he was elected to do. But our current opponent is now running for his third statewide office in 4 months, I think. So there's been a lot of change in politics in just the past few months. And this is really a fractious, interesting time. I was not so long ago at the Indiana Black Expo, and I ran into Senator Donnelly, and I just said to him, "Did you ever imagine that you'd be senior senator to Evan Bayh someday?" He just laughed too. He said, "No, I never saw that one coming." But I think neither John Gregg nor myself either really believed that Mike Pence would be running for vice president. But it did happen. And he and I both did suffer a little anxiety about that. Kim, feel where I see you back here? Hey, another great woman candidate. So we didn't really expect all of this to happen, but we had some trepidation. We probably had some nights lying in our beds, thinking, what is gonna happen here? And I personally thought, what an incredible opportunity for the Indiana Republicans, because they can hit that refresh button. They can choose some accomplished, esteemed, wonderful, fresh-faced candidate to come in. We were running against Mike Pence, really easy to get motivated to run against that guy in the morning, I might not be that great, but this guy's gotta go, right? How unusual is it that a sitting governor would be booed throwing out the first pitch at the Indianapolis Indians game? How unusual, probably unprecedented is it for our sitting governor to be booed at the Indianapolis 500 Festival Parade?
Not if they live in Indiana.
Well, I think he's the first one for this to happen to. So what was gonna happen? Well, when Eric Holcomb was chosen to be the Republican Party nominee, he said, I'm very, very proud to run on the record of Mike Pence. And I was taken aback by that because I've studied the record of Mike Pence. And I've been working in the General Assembly on a number of issues. And John Gregg and I are ready to work on practical solutions for people. We've been doing our homework. We've been running on policy. And the Pence administration has been dialed on to channel ideology, high philosophy for far too long. John and I are very, very serious about our approach to this campaign. You'll see we have published 11 policy position papers on a variety of topics, but they all hit 4 critical areas in one way or another: the economy, education, infrastructure, and public safety. We are ready to roll up our sleeves and get to work. We're ready to work on John's vision for Indiana. And he has a vision for Indiana. And let me tell you, we had our first debate-like event between John and Eric Holcomb just in the past couple of weeks. And I think it's remarkable, but also very telling. And it's evidence that John and I are walking our talk. Now, John got up. It was a facilitated one-on-one conversation with our very esteemed, very Republican Supreme Court Chief Justice, former Supreme Court Chief Justice Randy Shepherd. And John got up there, and yes, it was kind of white knuckle time for me for about 3 seconds, because it's like when your kid goes to pitch at that first game, how's he gonna do? He got up there so comfortable in his own skin, so prepared, because he's been working so hard on all of this. And he hit a home run. I was so proud of him. And that was a tough audience. Eric Holcomb got up, and the first question that our very Republican, very esteemed former Supreme Court Chief Justice Randy Shepherd asked him, he said, you know what? I've been doing my research, and one of the questions I wanted to ask all of the candidates was about public infrastructure. And I went to your website, and I Googled this, and I looked around as best I could. I asked my assistants, and I have to say, I could not find that you have a plan for public infrastructure in Indiana. Because they don't have any plans. They haven't published any policy position statements. We've published 11. So in these crazy, unpredictable political days where we've had this change in leadership, when we have an opponent who's now on his 3rd statewide office in 4 months, we are prepared. We've done our homework. And everyone is recognizing that that's just not the case on the other side. It's just not the case. And we know we have to move the needle in those 4 critical areas for a lot of reasons, but a lot of reasons that you won't hear from our opponents. The average Hoosier now is making $7,000 less than the average American worker. That's a big deal to people. Per capita income has been on the decline in Indiana since 1962. Household income has been on the decline since 2005, and during the Pence administration, we actually dropped 4 positions, so we're now 38th worst in the nation when it comes to per capita income. That's a big deal. And you women in this room, well, you know what happened during that time, between 1962 and today. we went to work. I'm not that old. I'm not that young. I can say that. But I'll tell you, when I was a kid, families could be supported by one breadwinner. That was normal. I grew up in Michigan City, Indiana. You know, that was average. Pretty much you had one breadwinner per family, even if it was a single parent family. That is just not the case today. That's the impossible dream for families today. So you have at least two breadwinners, but in many cases you have kids coming home because they can't afford to go out and get their own place, but that family needs that third income as well, or that fourth income. It's a very different economic structure for the family today, and I think Republicans, Democrats, Independents, we will all recognize that the fabric of family for far too many people in Indiana is frayed. We have a lot of challenges. Just look at the scourge of drug addiction. Look at the 5 counties in Indiana during the Pence administration that have gone on mandatory needle exchange. That's a very big deal. And we have to not only be concerned with stemming the spread of disease, but how about those economic contributing factors to the fact that we now have 5 counties that have such an outbreak of disease and drug addiction? How did people get there in happy, wholesome Indiana? We have to address that. It's important, it's urgent for those families. In Wayne County, Indiana, 10% of the babies born in the past 6 months have been born opiate addicted. I know some work that Clyde's been working on too. Indiana is the leading producer of crystal meth out of any state in the nation. And you know what? It costs $75,000 a year to keep someone warehoused in prison. That's a lot more than it costs to go to ISU, it costs to go to IU, Purdue, Notre Dame. That's expensive. We need to be concentrated on helping people, the incarcerated, transition back to their families, transition back to a drug-free life, transition back to their community and to their workplace. That's in everyone's best financial interest, and that's in the best interest of human beings everywhere. We can work smarter. I don't want to take up too much of your time because you're all standing around and nobody's sitting, but I do want to address the many issues of women in our state as well. So I like to look at the evidence, and I think it's really important to note that in Indiana, 1 in 6 girls and women live in poverty. We have one of the worst infant mortality rates of any state in the nation, and when it comes to African Americans, we have the very worst infant mortality rate of any state in the nation. You will not hear our opponents talking about that. That's a very big deal. 1 in 6 girls, by the time they're in high school in happy, wholesome Indiana, have been raped or sexually assaulted. That's outrageous. It's awful. We can do better, and we have to get very practical. I mean, in my mind, providing for public safety is government's job number 1, and our kids aren't safe. Can you imagine if 1 in 6 girls in Indiana suffered from a mysterious disease or just disappeared? Probably people will do something about it. But we have to be adults and recognize we have this problem. We better do something. And I think every one of us, you know, when you read the newspaper, you go online, we can see it's another swim coach, it's, you know, a family member, but it's happening all too often. We can do better, and we have to do better by Indiana's children. We just passed a bill, House Bill 1337, about women's reproductive rights. And I'll tell you, whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, this is a bad bill. And I never expected it to be on the floor, because I've seen some bad legislation when it comes to women's rights and access to health care in my short time in the State House. But I never expected to have 5 Republican pro-life women and 1 Republican pro-life man stand up and say, this is bad for women, let's not do this, this is awful legislation. But they did, because it was so incredibly bad. We had a bill, too, you can all rest easy now, because we've taken care of your problems here in Indiana. You no longer have to pay sales tax when you go to buy those gold bars. Gold bars, like the mad scientists keep in their basement. Yes, this past session, we removed the sales tax on that. And by the way, when you go to buy your plane for personal use, you don't have to pay sales tax on that. Because that helps you as your families. That helps support the middle class. It doesn't, it's ridiculous. I got up there to make a proposal to say, hey, How about we remove the sales tax on feminine hygiene products? How about remove the sales tax on adult and baby diapers? Well, I mean, you know, when your kid gets out of diapers, it's like getting a raise. It really is. These are need-to-have items, not nice-to-have items. John, Greg, and I are about practical solutions for people. We're about supporting working people and helping people become working people. It only makes financial sense. It's only the responsible thing to do. We're ready to get to work. And I finally want to finish with this thought, and this is for all of you in this room. We have a very homogeneous state government right now. Very homogeneous, whether in economic backgrounds. You know, I think I'll probably be like the only person ever elected as lieutenant governor who was a single mom and had to hustle to daycare by 6 p.m. so you don't have to pay those, you know, those fees and all that. Yeah. But we're not very diverse in a lot of different ways. We have one Asian American out of 150, 100 assembly members, 50 senators. I'm the only Latino out of 150. Only 11 of us are African Americans. Only 1 in 5 of us, excuse me, are women. That's somebody's cocktail, so I'm not gonna drink. Only 1 in 5 of us are women. Yeah, that would be great. Only 1 in 5 of us are women. How outrageous is that? No wonder why we're getting these mean-spirited, crazy decisions. I mean, seriously. So I want to say to all of you, to you, Bianca, to everyone in this room, I want to say, why not you? Why don't you consider running? I know everyone in this room is going to vote, and we have to ask you, please talk to your friends, get them to vote. We have the worst voter turnout of any state in the nation in 14. Like, talk it up, social media, all of that. But if it's not you, is it your daughter? Is it your friend? Who is that person? Whose voice out there does this General Assembly need? Because we got to shake things up. We've got to shake things up. And sometimes you have to run a couple times. I have a colleague that ran with me for the first time in 2012. Her name's Melanie Wright, a teacher, phenomenal. Look her up. She's smart, got a great heart. She's just wonderful, accomplished legislator in just her 2 years there. She lost in 2012. I won by 51 votes out of 36,000 cast.
Wow.
She lost by like some really slim margin, but she's resilient and she came back and she ran again and she won. Kim. She won. Sometimes you have to do it a couple times. You have to get the word out. You have to hit the pavement. I knocked on 30,000 doors. I only won because I knocked on 30,000 doors. But it can be done. But we've got to change our government because even when elected, John, Greg, and I will have so much power. But in order to really get things done, we need to at least be relevant again. And when we get to be relevant, that's when people are really compelled to have to collaborate and make deals and compromise. And that's when Indiana's going to look a bit healthier. That's when we're going to be able to drive through better decision making. Because like with House Bill 1337, when you have 6 influential pro-life Republicans saying this is bad, you know, you start getting that critical mass and things start happening. And we need you. Your government really needs you. Regular people with good hearts who are in it for the right reasons. And that's who's composing this room tonight. So I finally just want to finish on behalf of John, Greg, and myself. Thank you for being here tonight. Like, it feels like winning, doesn't it? The energy in this room. Support, and I am so grateful for all that you have done and continue to do, and getting out the vote and registering people to vote and contributing, and all of these things make a huge difference. Take it from the girl who won in a Republican district by only 51 votes. I just am so appreciative to be in this position and to help our cause, and I'm grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you.
From a person who has ran for office and held office. I was trustee for 20 years. My first campaign, my primary, I won by 7 votes. And it takes a lot of door knocking, it takes a lot of participation. And I always use this analogy, I'm a nurse by profession, and if I'm doing CPR, I can't just go and say, somebody go call 911. Somebody, you have to help, you, we all have to help get this job done. So we really want to make sure that we get John and Christina in the State House, so it takes all of us. At this time, I'm going to bring up our county chairman and co-hostess as well, Judy Anderson. She's going to say a few words.
Well, Bianca knows better. I don't always just say a few words, but I will tonight because it was so important, everything that Christina has said to us tonight. I hope that when you leave here, you remember what she said and you take it to heart because, you know, we have such a crazy political thing going on and we all admit that. But I'm going to tell you what, the people right here in this room, and I'm looking around and I see candidates everywhere, and these are the everyday people that are going to take care of you. We have to depend on them, and we have to depend on our state government. And we've got to change our state government, and Christina and John Gregg are our way. They are our path to taking back the state of Indiana. To have known John forever. It seems like Christina is a new friend, but I consider her a great friend because she is stepping up and doing what I hope that everybody in this room, like I said, take it to heart. If you're not ready to run, send somebody that will. Raise your children to know what a political job means because it is important. I know everybody says, oh, politicians, and my kids are in, some of them in the back room back there in the corner, and they just are probably laughing their fannies off. And no, I've got to tell you, I've done this for a long time. I worked my township, I worked the council, and I've been a commissioner for 16 years, and it is absolutely, if your heart's in it, it is the very most rewarding thing. If I could help one of you, it's worth it every day. And I know that that's where John and Christina are. That's what makes me stand up here and say, please help John and Christina. Thank you.
And I will tell you, Judy Anderson.
Wait a minute.
We're not quite done.
Not quite done.
I am Nellie Symbol, and I get the fun job, okay? And I will tell you, Judy Anderson is a wonderful person and helps many people. Louder! Bianca, say louder.
Really, seriously, I've never heard anybody else know what it does.
I know. Here we go. Okay. Now, you heard Christina tell us about the Greg Hale ticket. It's a wonderful ticket. We need what they're working toward in this state. I'm here to ask you to give some money, okay? Campaigns are terribly expensive, very, very expensive, hundreds of thousands of dollars in TV ads, and it's more expensive now coming into the last couple months than it has been. This was a meet and greet. We wanted you to meet Christina, to hear what she had to say, but we're also asking, if you can, to please donate to their campaign so that they have the funds necessary to get through these last, is it 8 weeks still, or are we down to 6?
55 days.
7 days and a little bit. 7 weeks and a little bit. So please do. I think the people who've come together to put on this event, it's the Concerned Women for Good Government. And there were about 24 people who signed on to this. Thank you all for coming. This is just unbelievable that there are so many of you here, men and women. And we're happy to have you here. But if you can, we have envelopes out front. We have a little gold pot that you'll recognize. So drop what you can in to help this campaign move forward. Thank you.
sure on Wednesdays that good.
Christina has about 15 minutes and then she has to bug out of here to go to Indianapolis. So she's going to try to get around the rest of the room, if you'll just be patient. And so you guys mingle, there's a ton of food left.